Chapter 1, Secrets are Revealed. Ariana. A voice boomed through the halls of Cloud Meadow, or the Golden Castle estate that the royalty of Lumina lived in. The capital, a blocky, in its vivid, glittery, and wispy nature, floated across all the skies in the day part of the planet, Lumina. Princess Ariana pretended like she didn't hear. She couldn't be bothered to notice. Even though she's been locked in her castle for the last 6 years, she felt she had seen it all, and been through all. That she had toured through every part of her seemingly perfect world except one place, Noxie. Just the name of it intrigued her, twisting her insides and feelings to do something that hasn't been done before, cross the border. Noxie was the night side of her planet, Steria, and the one place where a day dweller like her wouldn't dare enter. Ever since years ago, she's been stuck tediously in her minuscule floating castle and forbidden from venturing anywhere else. For what reason, she didn't know. Still, this made her restless. There were no books describing how anything from Noxie might have looked like. She's never seen the beautiful, silvery moon in the sky, and no matter how much she read or studied, it was simply never enough. Her ginormous golden cloud castle suddenly seemed like a tiny star in the sky. She just didn't know how to feel. Her sister, Sylvia, peeked from the heavy bronze door at the entrance to the Sun Library. "Why aren't you answering me?" That's because Ariana had finally found a book about Dune. This country alongside the border allowed lights and darks to meet and even live together. Sylvia rolled her eyes at her younger sister's silly find. "Ariana, we're lights. If we cross the border to the dark side, we die. Besides, we don't even know how they're like. They're the reason we have that law. Father must always talk things out with them and we're never allowed to come with him because it's dangerous. Remember what happened to Mom?" Ariana shook her head, her metallic golden hair swishing in 2 long ponytails. "You're making them sound like aliens. They're probably just like us, only a bit different. They can't all be evil vampires." She put her fingers in her mouth, mimicking the fangs of the bloodthirsty night dweller. What had happened to her mother may have happened to anyone if the law wasn't enforced. Her mother was once a beautiful queen that ruled Lumina alongside her father, the king, until her mysterious death. But still, they're dangerous, Ariana. You shouldn't talk to them unless it's required. What if something happens to you? Sylvia wrapped her arms around her sister, squeezing her in a tight hug. Ariana rolled her light blue eyes and smiled. "I'm 14. I can handle this." Sylvia held on to her firmly for a few more seconds before letting go. "You're right, but not because of your age. But because you were able to handle so much." She tensed before shuddering. "Anyway, I have to go. Remember, the law forbidding crossing the border is there for a reason." Sylvia gave her inquisitive sister a knowing smirk. "I know that you're planning something. You better not break any laws." Sylvia stood up and straightened her pearlescent white dress. As royalty, Sylvia and Ariana had to dress accordingly to their titles. The 2 princesses both wore white knee-length dresses, however, Sylvia had an intricate moon and star pattern while Ariana's dress was adorned with beautiful, golden roses. "Well, I better get going now, before the boys do anything reckless." Again, Sylvia winked at Ariana. She waved at the inquisitive girl, standing next to the rows of bookshelves that seemed to never end as they stretched out across the whole building. "Be careful. I'm only 2 years older than you, after all." With a sharp turn on her heel, she left, leaving Ariana to her studies at the ginormous library inside of the Golden Cloud Castle. The castle library was one of a kind, for the ceiling was almost sky-high and the place itself seemed to go on forever. A beautiful sunrise was painted on the walls and a crystal chandelier dangled from the remarkably high ceiling, illuminating the spacious room. Ariana silently wished she could view the setting sun before she had to go back up into the clouds. As a light fairy, her parents controlled the shining of the sun and the weather all over Lumina. Ariana opened her storybook about humans on Earth. Earth was a beautiful planet with both good and evil humans, who weren't bound to the limits of night and day. Ariana silently hoped that one day, she could become a human, even if it meant losing her magic powers. Ever since she was very little, Ariana was talented at manipulating light in any shape, form, or size. So far, though, the only thing it had been useful for is temporarily blinding people who stare at her for too long. Somehow, a princess with golden hair and diamond-like fairy wings was too much for the residents of Ablaki, who lived in a crystal city themselves. Wherever she went, people would stare and point at her. Ariana never wanted this kind of attention to herself. Not only was it distracting, but it also felt uncomfortable. Maybe then, she could freely travel the world like she always wanted. Ariana daydreamed about humans and their lives. Sure, there were some humans living on her planet, Steria. However, the Lumina and Noxie governments always helped them, even despite their reputation on Earth. That's why they were sent to live in villages down below, instead of famous capitals like Ablaki. She also knew they often had diseases that sometimes could not be cured whatsoever. Fairies like her never got these types of sicknesses, so they don't really know how to help. Even so, there were cures for most human diseases in this world. Ariana watched as the yellow sun sank lower and lower into the horizon, as if being anchored onto the ground. She tossed her books on a purple bean bag and noticed the time. She should be more careful tomorrow. Fluttering her wings, she flew towards the door before the librarian could scold her for leaving a mess and dashing away. The sun's glowing sun rays stole her away before she could even think about doing anything else. Ariana hopped from cloud to cloud before she sat at the edge of one and watched the sun set, already feeling rather drained. She yearned to stay a bit, or maybe even until the sun set completely. No, Ariana shook her head. Father does everything in his power to protect us. He risks his life every day just to set and raise the sun so that the rest of us in Lumina can be safe. I can't defy the law. Then, out of the corner of her eye, Ariana caught a glimpse of light-colored hair tinted with blue. Her eyes widened and she raced up, following whoever it was. Somehow, some girl was breaking the rule of crossing the border. Ariana sprinted after her. Wait up. The girl was too speedy for her on foot, so she fluttered her wings, flying as fast as she could. Yet, for some reason, the mysterious girl's feet were as fast as a flying car. Her hair was already darkening into a shade of ebony black, a sign of her transforming. Ariana realized that either way, the girl had to run faster than the setting sun, or she would face the penalty of death. However, that didn't explain why she looked so familiar. Wait, isn't that our castle's potion maker Prodigy? Stop! Ariana shouted at the peculiar girl. Her outfit was transforming into dark clothing and the style was morphing too. Her bright white and pastel kimono had evolved to a more gothic appearance. Her hair was now midnight black and vibrant neon blue. She was almost unrecognizable, lights and darks looked quite different from each other. Even though the girl heard Ariana's command, she did not stop running. In fact, she bolted right out the gates and hid behind the trees in the surrounding forest. She was breathing heavily, gasping slightly for air as Ariana jumped right from behind her. The teen fell from shock onto the grass. Ariana bent over, breathing heavily. Looks like I've caught you. She reached out to her to help her stand up. Now tell me, how in Lumina did you do that? Ariana's curiosity was getting the best of her. The girl was mildly astonished by the princess's behavior to a mere castle worker. Ariana wasn't even calling the guards like she thought she would. Do what? Go home? The potion maker pretended to be ignorant of the whole situation that had just unfolded before them. Get past the border, silly. Ariana smiled, ignoring the terrified look on her face. I can't tell you. The teen quickly turned around and started to dart away from Ariana. Wait, come back. Ariana raced after her, grabbed her hand, and pulled her back to their hiding spot. I won't tell anyone. Ariana whispered into her ear. Besides, if you won't tell me, then I'll tell the guards that there is a resident illegally crossing the border of Noxie. Ariana smirked mischievously. The girl impatiently huffed, fine, meet me at the potions room on the first floor of the castle at dawn. I'll explain to you everything there. She then hurriedly dashed into the sunset across to the border of Noxie, the region of night. Ariana's heart filled with joy, she'd finally learn how to cross over, right? Ariana skipped back to her castle as the sun set, illuminating it in golden light. She saw her father, the majestic King Alaric, slowly fly down to her with a set of brawny, almost 9-foot-tall guards with glittery purple wings that stretched farther than an angel's. Compared to them, her father looked like a dwarf, but despite that, he walked towards her with unwavering confidence and importance. Ariana looked to the side and held her hands together, pretending not to notice as he stopped right in front of her and crossed his arms. Why aren't you inside the castle? I specifically instructed everyone to return to their residences before it becomes evening. This includes you. Ariana quickly thought of a lie, trying not to appear clumsy or unusual, and peered into his eyes. I lost track of the time and was heading from the library. I apologize for the inconvenience, father. She curtsied a bit at him, keeping her head low, but high enough to see what his next course of action would be. She knew she couldn't be rude to him, and even if she could, he'd punish her in the castle instead. However, it would be better to avoid any suspicion so that she could sneak out tomorrow morning. Besides, she didn't exactly lie to him. Just left out a few details. After what felt like the rest of eternity, her father eyed her with approval and turned around, striding towards the castle. That's good, a princess should be intelligent. Now, come along to dinner with me. Everyone else is waiting. Ariana sighed with relief and slowed her pace to her father's, whose brown hair blended in with his golden crown. Ariana would have looked more like her father if his eyes weren't warm amber. They made their way into the hall, where a long, golden, silver, and white staircase spiraled up many, many floors. The steps were pearlescent, as if made from pure, glistening pearls from the deep blue sea. Ariana didn't know if the staircase or the living room distracted her more from reality. The walls were made from pure gold and all the furniture was accented with metallic colors. Ariana passed by a portrait of what looked like a younger version of her parents. The description read, Celeste and Alaric Starlight, at King Alaric's coronation. There were many paintings in the castle, but this one was her favorite since her parents had looked so happy. She always wondered what it would be like to invite friends inside if she had any. As the two came into the kitchen, servants were busy preparing the evening meal. All of Ariana's 12 brothers and sisters were already sitting at the long, brown table. She saw Sylvia's short, silver hair in the distance and went to sit with her at the long table. Ariana looked to the side and waved to Rosalina, another one of her older sisters, with light pink hair and an overall rosy complexion. Rosa gave her a questioning look and began talking to her brothers. Despite her family being royal, the behavior of Ariana's siblings reminded her more of a zoo full of golden, pampered orangutans, swinging from tree to tree. All the boys were making silly faces and sticking out their tongues while the girls glared at them and stuck out theirs. Finally, the blissful reward of silence arrived when their father sat down on his throne-looking chair. As soon as he turned towards them, their mouths shut in unison. He peered at all his children with a slow stare, and then turned in his seat as he addressed all 13 of them in the room. As you all know, the commencement of the school year is arriving soon. On September 1st, all of you will be traveling to your customary schools, except for one. His eyes shifted towards Ariana, who gulped and held her hands together, trying to hide the fact that she was slouching a moment ago. She will be attending Legacy of Light, which is the same school that I attended when I was her age. Ariana's eyes widened. How could this be? Sylvia had been attending Universal for 2 years already, so how come she had to attend another school? Ariana stood up abruptly from her bronze chair. But father, I thought I'd be attending Universal. Sylvia grabbed her arm to pull her down, but to no avail. Ariana, you mustn't disobey father. Ariana shook her head, squinting her eyes. How come Sylvia gets to go to Universal and I don't? King Alaric glares at her. I will not allow my daughter to mix in with that dark filth. Universal accepts both lights and darks. They always spread their propaganda and bogus ideas on how lights and darks should live together. That's outrageous. I won't let my daughter get brainwashed with that nonsense.